KJR AM and KJR FM HD2. Seattle! Available everywhere with the iHeartRadio app. Now number one in podcasting. Sports Radio 950, KJR, an iHeart radio station. This is the 12th Man Postgame Show, powered by Real Steel. Find yours at your local steel dealer today on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950, KJR.
Dick Fain, Slickhawk, 12th Man Postgame Show, brought to you by our friends at Steel and Slickhawk. Some expected things that happened in this game, some very unexpected things that happened in this game. I think that anybody that had watched the Giants even remotely closely over the last month knew they were a pretty damn good defensive team, and they were a pretty tough out as far as to just knock them out and to get easy wins. But having said that, I don't think anybody thought that we would have this much trouble moving the football against that New York Giants team, and a very, very costly loss by the Seattle Seahawks today to New York.
Yeah, so some of the flow of the game, I expected. I just came in almost predetermined that I'm just not going to have really any emotion about what happens. And so the first half goes by and they're struggling. It's 5-0. I don't have any emotion. It's a one-score game. Even when they fell behind, I was like, okay, it's fine. They'll come around. They'll do it. When they fell behind 2 scores, my blood pressure started to raise a little bit. Yeah. And then when the interception goes through Chris Carson's hand and they pick it off, then that's when I got hot. I didn't even get worried so much as I got mad. Like whether they win or lose at that point wasn't even important to me. I was just mad. And so I just spent the whole last 30 minutes mad and just progressively more mad. And now here we are on a post-game show. So.
Well, I appreciate, Slick. I appreciate the fact that you were able to not be mad up until the last 5 minutes of the game, because if you paid any attention to my Twitter during the football game, I don't know if I've been more upset with a Seahawk play caller than I was today with Brian Schottenheimer in a long, long time. I don't know how many times we need to talk about it on the postgame show. I don't know how many times we need to talk about it on the afternoon show. I'm sure you talk about it on the morning show. But when this team refuses to have any commitment to running the football, they lose the game. And I am staring here at a ledger that says Russell Wilson 43 passes, Chris Carson 13 runs for 65 yards, by the way. 13 runs for 65 yards is 5 yards a carry, so it's not like they had any problem running the ball. They were fine when they were running the football, and they just chose not to. And it was diametrically opposed, Slick, to what we saw yesterday when you and I had equally as bad a days. You as a Duck fan, me as a Husky fan. But the Huskies got down way more than the Seahawks were ever thought about getting down today. And how did the Huskies come back in that game? They ran the ball. Then they took a shot. They ran the ball. And then they took a shot. And Brian Schottenheimer, it's been his MO. When he gets down in games, he just goes to, I got to put it all on Russell's shoulders. He'll make magic for us. And it just doesn't work out all the time that way.
Well, when the team's behind, I certainly am with the philosophy you want the ball in your best player's hands, and that's Russell Wilson. Could they have run the ball a little more here or there? I guess they could have. I haven't been more eager to see the coaches film on NFL Game Pass on a game in a long, long time, because there was stuff that Russell Wilson, he had time and he was looking for things and it obviously wasn't there. And then he would bail. And then the Giants did a really good job of containing him and not letting him leak out, which resulted in sacks or short runs for Russell Wilson. But whatever he thought he was going to see for most of the game downfield, it was not there for him. And I want to know if that's just a timing thing, he couldn't see thing, or if they just did that good a job covering DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and David Moore and Penny Hart.
It was just so frustrating to watch how there was just zero flow, zero comfortability in the offense until what happens? They get frantic at the end. They got that touchdown, and on that touchdown drive, they were in the hurry up. And I even tweeted out a few moments ago, the Seahawks aren't comfortable until they're uncomfortable. And that was the most comfortable the offense was the entire game, was in the final 5 minutes of the game when they marched for their only touchdown drive and then put more yards on the ledger in that second drive that ended up, because of the negative plays, because of the sacks, as you mentioned, ended up in a Hail Mary incomplete pass. But it's just bizarre how they were not able to get any comfortability for 3.5 quarters offensively.
Well, and it's interesting because Brian Schottenheimer said this week that he wanted to go up tempo more, which, I don't know why every time they say that I fall for it hook, line, and sinker, because it doesn't happen. And not only did they not go up tempo, but the offense had maybe the least tempo of any game that they've had this year. So it was all just really head scratching to me.
Certainly was. We're going to have Hugh Millen join us in a few minutes. We're going to have Dave Softy Mahler join us. You can join us as well at 49451. I can just imagine, Slick. I can just imagine the text.
Might be a text or two
that you're getting. And you know what? I get a lot of criticism for being Pollyanna, rosy. Why are you so optimistic? Why are you so positive after games where they play terribly? Well, it's very simple. I am Pollyanna and optimistic about games where they play terribly and win, because I understand how hard it is to win in the NFL, and certainly to win at the consistency that this Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson team has won over the last decade. But I'm not gonna be Pollyanna about this particular game, because they didn't win. They didn't find a way to come back to win. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the, they were exposed, they're frauds, they're blah blah. They played a bad football game. They had on one side of the ledger. I mean, on the other side of the football, I don't think anybody would have had any problem with the Giants scoring 17 points today. And I mean, anybody have it off? They gave up one big long run to Wayne Gallman and got a little soft there at the end of that drive where they allowed the touchdown run. Other than that, the defense played really, really well today.
Sure, and added, by the way, a safety on a punt block too. So
that DJ Dallas should have had for a touchdown. By the way, God.
And look, the football bounces in weird ways. You know this. I know this. Hard to contort the body and react to it and fall on a football like that. And I'm not going to fault DJ Dallas for, at point blank range, letting that get away from him. Your special teams did a hell of a job there getting the block in the end zone. It would have been nice to recover for a touchdown, but at the very least, you pick up 2 points there, and that's a swing. So, no, I think that, look, the defense did everything you would want them to do. You come into this game, the game plan has to be, okay, well, Colt McCoy isn't going to beat you, so just don't beat yourself. Right. And between penalties, missed opportunities, and bad quarterback play, from my eyes at least, and we'll hear more from Hugh Millen about the quarterback play. He can comment on that, but they beat themselves today.
When we were down 8-5 in the second half there, which is just a 3-run shot by Aaron Judge gave the Yankees the 8-5 lead over the Mariners. But
I told you we need to fix this bullpen.
Yes, indeed. But, the short fields, the turnovers, and I almost hit send on a tweet. I was gonna send a tweet out, and I said, let's just play uber conservative. Punts are good things, and let's just pin them back every single possession, whether or not we score or not. Every single possession, let's just pin him back inside the 20, play defense, and hopefully your defense can lead you to a short field, a turnover, a Colt McCoy interception or something. I didn't hit send, and God, I wish I would have hit send, because right after that, what happens? The Seahawks go for it on midfield. 4th and 1, they go for it. They don't run the ball on 4th and 1. They roll Russell Wilson out on 4th and 1. So not only was it a questionable decision to go for it, the more questionable part of it was the play call on that. But if you just punt that ball there, you're down 8-5. The Giants are getting, with Michael Dixon, the Giants are getting it most likely inside their own 15-yard line, maybe inside their own 10-yard line. They're not going to do anything with that drive, but instead, all they had to do was go 48 yards. They had to go 48 yards to score, where they scored their second and only other touchdown to make it 14-5. And then you have an interception 2 drives later where you give them a short field. I mean, all Seattle had to do offensively today was simply gain some yardage, punt, gain some yardage, punt, and force the Giants to go long distances because the Giants were incapable of going long distances. They had one explosive play the entire game, the Goldman run.
And I mean, I guess that ends up being the difference. I didn't have an issue with the play call in 4th and 1. I mean, you put the ball in Russell Wilson's hands, you get him out on the move, and the Giants, they're playing too, and they're trying to win too, and they just made a play on that play that stopped you. So I didn't have a problem with that play call or that decision, by the way. But no, at halftime, it just felt to me like, to your point, the Giants aren't going to drive down and get you today. Now they did it once. They did do it once, and that ends up being the scoring difference. So, but again, there's just nothing on about the defense today. I mean, Jamal Adams today played a hell of a game. He was everywhere. For the first time this season, I'm referring to Jamal Adams as a safety because to me he looked like and played like a safety. Before all this time leading up to this, he's been a linebacker to me. Today he was a safety and a damn good one. So, the defense made plays. Jordan Brooks made a lot of plays. Bobby Wagner made some plays. KJ Wright made some plays. Shaq Griffin made some plays. I was happy with the defensive effort that was turned in, and it was more than enough for a mediocre offense to be able to take advantage of and win the game by a couple of touchdowns, much less an offense that's been as good as this offense has most times this season. It's inexplicable how badly they played and how they weren't able to get the win today.
Yeah, C- offense scores enough to win. C+ offense scores enough to win easily. Dave Softy Muller is going to join us. We'll get his thoughts coming up in the next segment. Hugh Breedlove Millen about 15 minutes away. It's 12-man postgame show, 49451. If you want to join us via the text line, get it on out. I mean, these are the type of games. That's why I save my vitriol for these type of games, because I just don't like bitching and moaning about games where you win by 10, 12, 14 points. No, I'm going to save them for these type of games because there's plenty of blame to go around, especially on that offensive side of the football. We'll do it next on 950 KJR.
Tune in to Chuck and Buck every weekday morning for the 12th Man News at 7 with Tacoma News Tribune's Greg Bell on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.
All right, here it is, 6 with Slick. If you're new to our 12-man postgame show and coverage, when the station, because this is on the radio as well as online, when they go to break, when Dick goes to break, we come here with me. And here it is. So the first comment actually is from my wife. Ever since Safeway started selling Let Russ Cook aprons, Russ has been terrible. Well, yeah, let's blame Safeway. I am choosing to blame Russ a lot for this loss, which actually has been a common theme here in the last month. Eric, boy, echoing Dick Fain's thoughts, says he doesn't know why we stopped running the ball. I mean, they ran the ball well when they did run the ball. Just I can remember like 3 running plays, in the second half. So I don't know what was happening down the field. I don't know how much is on Wilson, how much is on the receivers, how much is on the game planning and the game calling. And so maybe some of it's on the offensive coordinator as well. But that's a perfect sentiment. How can they lose to these guys? Just a team like Seattle, as good as they are, should not lose to a team like the Giants. It just shouldn't happen. It's the NFL. I know that these things happen, but you just never would think it should happen to your team. Wheeler didn't look good out there. There was just not much. Once Jamarco Jones went out, on the offensive line, that was, I guess, a problem. Although I don't think all the issues of Russell Wilson running into defensive players, I don't think that was all on the offensive line either. I think that there was something Russell was looking for downfield that he just wasn't getting from this defense. And then at that point, maybe that is on the offensive coordinator for not adjusting and to, maybe scale back what you're looking for and the plays that you're designing and have more of an intermediate passing game, because it seemed like it was all or nothing. And for most of the game, they came up with nothing. Here come the excuses. Hawks made the Giants defense look like the 85 Bears. I don't know if I'll go that far, but, we certainly did them some favors. Definitely. So Joe says the Seahawks are a joke. Offense is a steaming pile of crap. I don't know what happened to the offense today. I mean, that's not the offense that I've seen most of this season. I mean, we saw an offense last week that, had DK Metcalf featured for 177 yards. Where was a lot of that today? Tyler Lockett for the second straight game, a lot of the time he was kind of non-existent. There weren't a lot of big plays. And like Dick says, not much out of the running game. So Chris Carson was abandoned in the second half. And, we talked so long about how important it was, and we all waited with bated breath for when Chris Carson was going to get back. He is back now. He looks to be full strength. I mean, he's running guys over. His first carry was for, I think, 11 yards, or maybe the first carry of the second half. But, to that point, he was running the football well. So, to not use Chris Carson helped create that balance. I mean, why were we so excited to get Chris Carson back if we're not going to use him more? So I think that's the point Dick's making. And I agree with that too. Sharon, embarrassing. The offense didn't show up for a second game. Yeah, the offense was non-existent. And I don't know where it was. I don't know why. I can't wait to see some of the tape and see what was happening downfield, because it just looked to me all game long like Russell Wilson was looking for something that wasn't there. And I mean, we saw, and then there were some drops. Tyler Lockett had a drop. The defender was there, but you like to see him come with that. DK Metcalf had a huge drop that really would have set them up down there for first and goal. So it didn't look good. The offense hasn't looked the same in a few weeks, and Russell Wilson hasn't looked like he did in the first half of the season in a while now. So I don't know what that is. I don't know if other teams have adjusted to what Seattle does. I don't know exactly what the problem's been, but it's certainly frustrating. And whenever if you lose a game as a playoff team to a team like that, an NFC East team, that doesn't bode well. That's bad news. And the rest of the NFC is kind of doing you some favors too. I mean, the NFC West was wide open. You have a game left against the Rams, and you had a game lead on them. Okay, so now that evaporates, and you're back in that tie with them, and they actually jump you because they own the tiebreaker right now. So it was all laid out. This real easy part of the schedule, and they weren't able to take advantage. So that's frustrating. And next week you face the Jets. So, I guess no game can be considered a gimme right now with this team. You thought this one good. I did. I definitely thought this game could be a gimme. It's a get right game. But they weren't able to take advantage, and that's really frustrating. And you can put whatever superlatives on it. You can call it trash. You can call it whatever you want. It didn't look good, and it didn't look like a playoff team today. All right, let's get back to the 12-man post-game show presented by Steel, your local Steel dealerships, with Dick Fain, right here on Sports Radio 950 KJ.
Now back to the 12-man post-game show, powered by Real Steel. Find yours. Visit your local Steel dealer today on your home for the 12th man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Steel dealerships are independently owned and operated, and with over 10,000 dealers nationwide, there is one near you. So support your small business in your community. Visit your local Steel dealer today. Real Steel, find yours. Dick Fain, Slickhawk, and now joined by Dave Softy Mahler. And guys, I mean, we're the three losers this weekend. My God, Huskies, Ducks, Seahawks, just.
What a miserable weekend.
What a hell of a weekend for us, man. But let's focus on this one today. Softy, just general thoughts off the top.
Well, I thought it was an embarrassment. I thought it was an absolute colossal failure on every aspect of this football team, from their preparation the week of the game to their execution on game day, to their coaching decisions, to their execution from a player perspective. I mean, I'm thinking about – the drive they scored their last touchdown on, DK Metcalf drops a seam route. What is this guy, right? I mean, he's the biggest wide receiver in the NFL. He's 6'5", 230, and you got quarterbacks blowing him up and knocking footballs away. So Chris Carson has a ball go off his face, for God's sakes, in this game. Pete Carroll punting on 4th and 6 from the giant 37-yard line against a damn backup quarterback. Chad Wheeler's at right tackle. He can't block anybody. Chad Wheeler couldn't block my grandmother. My grandmother died 30 years ago. All right. And the lack of creativity to give this guy some help and to use a blocking back or a tight end to help out Chad Wheeler, who was obviously way over his skis in this game today. I understand that there's guys that are banged up and there's only so much you can do, but they left Chad Wheeler out there to freaking rot in that game today. And the scheme to not protect him finally, had Russell Wilson start going to his left to get away from that monstrosity that was the right tackle. So I just think it's one of the worst losses of the Carroll era. And I got people on Twitter, talking about the 2017 Ram game. Excuse me, that Ram team finished 11-5 and had Jared Goff and Todd Gurley on offense. This team's got nothing on the offensive side of the ball. They got a backup quarterback who hasn't won a game in 6 years, and you allow this punk ass to come into your stadium and beat you and to move the ball down the field in the fourth quarter. I realized that the Seahawks got the ball back, but they made things harder on their defense by allowing Colt effing McCoy to move the ball down the field in crunch time. I mean, guys, Jamal Adams, great. 7.5 sacks, awesome. Rasheem Green had 4 a year ago. So this guy has stepped up for sure and has given the Hawks a pass rush, which we thought he would when he was acquired by the Jets. But I thought it was telling that on the first third down of that drive, they go right at Jamal Adams with Evan Ingram, a tight end. And this is exactly why they traded for Jamal Adams, to cover tight ends like Evan Ingram, and he got burned on that play. And that just kept the drive going for the Giants and made things that much tougher on the Seahawks. So I got to be honest with you, man. The frame of mind I'm in right now, I don't want to hear Russell Wilson's, nonsense cliches. I don't want to hear separations in the preparation. I don't want to hear, what he loves and what he doesn't love. I don't want to hear anything from Russell Wilson if it's going to be just cliche after cliche after cliche. I don't want to hear Pete Carroll's sunshiny, optimistic nonsense. I want to hear somebody go in that locker room, get in front of the media, and rip somebody's ass. Because don't tell me this is working. This football team has extremely high expectations. This franchise has extremely high expectations. And look, if getting to the second round and losing every year and getting buried in the first half of those games is our definition of working, then we're on a different page. This team with this quarterback and with this wide receiver core should be in the conference championship Super Bowl conversation every single year. And it's hard for me right now, with the frame of mind that I'm in and the mood that I'm in, to consider this team a legitimate Super Bowl contender after the crap I just saw.
Well, I mean, I would agree that it's one of their worst losses, the Pete Carroll era, no question. We could kind of take a look at it and find out if they've this late in the season, if they've lost any teams that had this bad a record. But it certainly is up there. If it's not number one, it's up there. I don't know about whether they're not a legitimate Super Bowl team, because I'm looking at all these other teams and there's massive holes in every single one of these other teams at the top of the NFC. So I'm going to keep them up there. But you're right. I will ask you this though. The Slickhawk and I were talking about the play calling today, and you've thrown out the stat before. You probably have it in front of you, Softy. When Russell Wilson throws 40 or more passes, what it was, something like 5 and 12 or something like that, and again today it just seemed like it was just pass, and when they got behind, it was desperation pass. Slick didn't have quite as much of an issue with it as I did, but I just thought the lack of a balance from the get-go really put this team behind the 8 ball offensively. What did you think about the play calling from Shoddy?
Well, I mean, first of all, I agree with you on the lack of balance. I mean, this game was never out of reach at any point in time during the game. There was never any reason to go away from, what you thought would work. And look, I mean, Chris Carson averaged over 5 yards a carry, carried the ball, 12 times? Is that right in this game today?
Yeah.
Pete Carroll talked last week about the magic 50 number, completed passes and rush attempts, and they got to 49. So they were that close to getting to that number, but we talked about this during the week, that with Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde healthy, there was no reason not to pound the football, and I thought they got away from it a little bit too early. I also thought that the 4th and 1 play call was complete nonsense, absolute nonsense. And I'm getting sick and tired of watching coaches, not just in Seattle, but all over the NFL and really over football, overthink this crap. I mean, why is Nick Bellore on the roster? The Giants are using a guard in Lemieux at fullback in that game.
Put him in front of Chris Carson and run behind his ass.
You get Russell Wilson under center. You get Nick Bellore and Chris Carson in the I formation, and you pound that crap right up the A gap, and you take any issues with a right tackle in Wheeler, a left tackle in Brown, somebody getting blown up, somebody missing an assignment, blah, blah, blah. You take that out of the equation. So I get so sick and tired of watching coaches overthink situations like that. It was obviously the right call to go for it, but the play call when they're lining up and Russell Wilson rolls out was horse crap then. It's going to be horse crap tomorrow. I don't give a damn if they convert or not. Don't overthink crap like that. And if Nick Bellore is on this roster and you won't use him then when the hell are you going to use the guy? So that drives me absolutely bananas. I mean, guys, I thought it was one of Brian Schottenheimer's worst games as a Seahawks play caller since he's been here. I thought Patrick Graham, the defensive coordinator for the Giants, whipped his ass in this
Ate his
game.
lunch.
Just thinking about the weekend, Dick. Tavita Pritchard kicked the crap out of Pete Kwiatkowski and Jimmy Lake last night at Husky Stadium on offense, and Patrick Graham just beat the crap out of Brian Schottenheimer.
No, it was bad. Terrible weekend for the assistant coaches. No question about it. All right, what do we got in the show tomorrow at 3?
Well, we're going to hopefully a lot more of this, but maybe calm down a little bit. Maybe whatever fire and venom we've got, we can get off off our chest tonight. But we'll have some extra time tomorrow with the Sounders game, obviously at 6:30. But Huey will join us on the show, and we'll get Hugh's thoughts on this whole thing. I know you will is next. But guys, what a freaking joke! And there's no sugarcoating this. This football team obviously has a chance to bounce back, and let's hope that they do starting next week against the Jets. But for today, for right now, at 4:36 in the afternoon, about 20 minutes after that game was over, this was an embarrassing day today for this coaching staff and these players, and there's no other way to present it.
No question about it, and I think they nailed it on the broadcast. This is probably the biggest upset in the NFL this season. I mean, you're talking about a double-digit dogs don't win very often. But, hey, thanks, Softy. We'll talk to you tomorrow, man.
All right.
It's Dave Softy Mahler. Slick and I will be back with Hugh Breedlove Millen coming up next right here on 950 KJR.
Tune in to Chuck and Buck every weekday morning for the 12th Man News at 7 with Tacoma News Tribune's Greg Bell on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR.
All right, 6 with Slick number 2. 2 of, I think, 4 today. You guys get me for a double dose, so 24 minutes of Slick. But it's a good, you know what? It's just water right now because we're on the air, and much like Softy, he and I have different ways of exuding that anger. He's just right there with it and everything. And I'm a little bit more reserved when I'm on the air because I don't know what I'm going to let fly because I'm not a 25-year radio veteran like Softy is. So I'm just going to stick to water right now. But yeah, this is exactly these comments that are coming in. Keep them coming right here on the broadcast. Russ needs to get in the film room and quit doing interviews and worry about what's. I'm not gonna say anything. I don't think that's the issue, really. I don't think that's not Russell Wilson's not working hard enough during the week. I just think that they thought that they were going to see a different kind of defense that they didn't see, and I think there was a failure to adjust by Russell Wilson, a failure to adjust by Brian Schottenheimer. It's the coaching and Russell Wilson, and that's exactly it. That's what's being echoed there. So look, Russell Wilson and how much during the week he's studying, I don't think that really changes so much. The fact that he does more interviews or the fact that he participated in the Cleats initiative that all the other players competed in. He had players all around the league doing that stuff. So I think Russell, at this point in his 9-year career, can balance all of that. So I'm not worried about that. I'm just worried about what's happening on the field, what he's seeing, what is not being done by the wide receivers, I guess, getting open, or because it just, there's too much running around today. There's too much of just waiting for something to develop that never came. And the defense, the D-line, caught up with him. And it resulted in a bunch of sacks, and it resulted in a bunch of tackles for loss, and just an ugly game offensively, and no flow, no tempo. Every Seahawks fan should be embarrassed. I mean, it's a little embarrassing to lose to a team like the Giants, to lose any of those NFC East teams. And now, I mean, think about it. Earlier this year, you beat the Cowboys while they had Dak Prescott. And today you couldn't get that done against the Giants. So I don't know what's changed offensively with this team because you've got all the weapons that you've had. You've got Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde back. So I don't know what has happened. And I guess you could put it squarely on the quarterback, but what would have changed with him? Is he gun shy now? Maybe those turnovers earlier this season made him a little bit gun shy, and he's not willing to make as many risky throws, or I don't know if that's it or not. I don't know what the problem is, but I think a lot of it has to do with number 3, and he's got look. If we're going to go anywhere this season, he's going to be the one to take us there. So he's the one who needs to figure his stuff out. Yeah, Kevin, it seems like our only pass play is go deep. And it just kind of seemed like that today. It was all or nothing. It was, they're going deep, they're looking deep, and the Giants weren't going to allow the big play through the air today. That was obvious. And so there was no counterpunch from the Seahawks. There was no counterpunch from Russell Wilson or Brian Schottenheimer to play the intermediate passing game, to do some other things. I know they dialed up one screen and that got blown up. That doesn't mean you can't go back to it. Earlier on in the game, they're going with the tight end and using the tight end. They should have continued to do that. And, so I don't know. I think there were things that they could have done. Hopefully, probably, I would think, to get some guys open across the middle of the field. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe the Giants were just that good on defense today. Leave a bad team hanging around as sometimes you get caught. No, Xavier, you're absolutely right. A bad team, look, they're going to be more hungry for a win than a good team. And so if they get in a position to where they believe in themselves a little bit, that they're going to be able to get a win, especially against a good team like Seattle, then yeah, they're gonna as the game goes on, they're gonna get more and more belief. Yeah, it's gonna come back to bite you. Next week next week is the Jets, right? So I mean, if they look anything like this against the Jets, I'm gonna start tearing things down in this house. So we hope that's not the case. Jeannie, internal turmoil. I don't know. Internal turmoil, what does that mean? Is there infighting in the locker room? Is Damian Lewis walking over to snack Harrison's locker and punch him in the face? I don't know. But I will say this defensively. I mean, they gave one really big drive. Pete Carroll sucks. I don't know about that. I mean, we've had some pretty good success here with Pete Carroll, so I'm not going to go that far. I just think there was a failure to make adjustments today, and that falls on coaches and on the quarterback. So that's just kind of how I see it. More wideout screens, more checkdowns. Yeah, especially with DK. The wide receiver screens seem to work. Get him out in space. Let him truck some guys over. That seems to work. Anytime you can get the ball into DK's hands, as long as he's actually going to catch it, that usually seems to be a good thing. Okay, Hugh Millen is about to join the show. Dick Fain coming back too, right here on the 12th Man Postgame Show presented by Steel, Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Now back to the 12th Man Postgame Show, powered by Real Steel. Find yours. Visit your local Steel dealer today on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Real Steel, find yours. Visit your local Steel dealer today. And boy, that defense of the New York Giants, who has really played. Anybody that's paid any attention, the Giants defense has played very, very well enough to win every one of their last 6 games. I had a stats are for losers yesterday, or I guess Friday, Slick, that mentioned that if the New York Giants would have scored 5 extra points in the right spots, they'd have been 6-0 over the last 6 games. I mean, and that is primarily because of the defense, not because of what they've done on the offensive side of the football. No excuse on that side on what we saw with the Seahawk offense today. And we bring in Hugh Breedlove Millen right now. And Hugh, as we always do, we kind of just roll out the carpet for you. And before we go into anything specific, give us just your general thoughts of what Slick and Softy and I have all called, if not the worst loss in the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson era. I mean, it has to be top 3.
Well, it's immensely discouraging when you consider what Seattle had right there for them. A lot of talk about them maybe challenging to get the number 1 spot, solidly at the number 2 spot with the best schedule on board. And I just like the Seahawks to tell me, what is the standard? Because I think that they're telling us that they have a championship standard, and yet just a startling lack of professionalism that these guys showed to allow themselves to lose to a football team of this caliber with a backup quarterback. There's just no excuse for it whatsoever. Look, I understand most of the weight is going to fall on the offense in terms of the ineptitude, but I think as a football team, they're I don't know. I'm very befuddled as to who the Seahawks are now, because we thought that they were a team that had a capable offense. Halfway through the season, they were number 1 in the NFL in points scored, and it seems like they've really hit the skids. The defense is coming on. This is looking more like old type Pete Carroll football, and I just don't know what to make of it in that regard, because I certainly thought the offense could handle themselves better. I understand the Giants are better defense, but but for the defense's part, hey, they gave up nearly 200 yards of rushing.
Yeah.
So you can't tell me that they had their house in order either. Giving up a 60-yard run, not taking care of a backup quarterback. So I just think it's an immensely discouraging loss.
Well, and we'll talk a lot about the offense here, but let's just go to the defense at the end of the football game, where the defense allowed the Giants to take 4 minutes and 21 seconds off the clock. I mean, those were 4 minutes and 21 huge seconds that kind of put the Seahawk offense in, we have to pass mode, we have to get kind of frantic mode, we have to get big chunks of yardage mode. If the defense can just stop them on a 3rd and 5, New York Giants are in their own 30-yard line, 3rd and 5, and you allow, as you mentioned, a backup quarterback to hit Evan Ingram for a first down, and the clock goes from 5:24 till you don't get it back until 1:55 because you weren't able to get that stop. So tell us what happened on that 3rd and 5 there with Jamal Adams and Evan Ingram.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It's cover one, it's man-to-man. There's only one help, and that's in the post. So you're going to play that. If you're Jamal Adams, you know that you've got help to the seam, but you got to cover the shallow cross. You got to cover the inside slant. Now, on an earlier 3rd down, now it was more of a blitz look, but they had allowed Ingram. Jamal Adams had been beaten on an in-breaking route, that slant. I believe it was about 3rd and 9. And he stopped him for 8 yards, or maybe it was 3rd and 10, and they stopped him for 9. So perhaps Adams was thinking in-breaking route in his mind, but it was
just
an
for perspective. It's 3rd and 9 with 10 minutes left to go in the 4th quarter. Colt McCoy hit Ingram for 8 yards and was stopped 1 yard
on the
short.
38-yard line, the plus 38.
Forced the field goal. Forced the Gano field goal.
Yeah, which of course was a key. I thought that the Giants were going to go for it, but when you start to piece it together, you say, wait a minute. This is a Seahawk offense that's really struggling. Now they've got to get 2 touchdowns. So it ends up being the right decision. He knew his kicker, and those points were pivotal, right? But on the 3rd and 5, as you said, it was snapped with 5:24 remaining. It's as simple as you can get. There's not a lot that you need from me from a technical standpoint. I can just tell you it's man-to-man, cover one, and you got to cover that guy, and Evan Ingram was the better player on that particular play. And look, Jamal Adams did a lot of good things on the game today, but it's the type of game, it's almost like he's in quarterback status in terms of his analysis, because defensively, what you gave up for him, it takes on the weight of a quarterback. It's as if he's the quarterback of the defense. You're going to tell me, well, Bobby Wagner is the quarterback of the defense. I understand that. In one respect, Bobby Wagner, and for all intents and purposes, he's the quarterback of the defense. But in terms of the playmaker that has to make the plays, that's Jamal Adams, given what you gave up for him. And right there in coverage, that's the time that he needed to be worth the 2 number ones. And on that play, he wasn't.
And tip of the hat to Colt McCoy. I mean, he's a veteran. He's been in those situations before. I can vividly remember him getting a big win on Monday Night Football as he was thrust into a starting role. I mean, he's not a great quarterback by any stretch of the imagination, but made that big play on 3rd and 5. He made a big play on 2nd and 7 for 14 yards to Darius Slayton. He did what he needed to do to kill clock on that last drive. One more question concerning the Seahawk defense, and then I think we need to move to the what the hell happened with the Seahawk offense side for most of the rest of your visit with us here, Hugh. And that was on the big run by Wayne Gallman. What happened there? Gallman, busting into the secondary against a defense that had just been stoning the Giants up to that point.
Well, there's so much one-back offense in the NFL, and you don't see as much fullback, and it wasn't a fullback in there, but teams, they can get a little bit rusty and off point in terms of how they handle gaps when there's lead blockers. And there was both a lead guard and a lead tackle that were pulling out into space. So you had Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright fighting to get to their gap, and you have to take on a block. So Wagner was trying to get to the outside, and you had Quandre Diggs come up, and he elected to take the inside route, and meaning the inside gap. And if you're going to make that decision, you better be right. So what ended up happening is Wagner just couldn't get to the outside zone, and because Diggs chose to come underneath the play, we used to call that the Junior Seau angle. Like, if you're going to come underneath it, you have to have the acceleration to make that play, or Earl Thomas, what have you. So you got a safety that took a bad angle, and you got a middle linebacker that couldn't get to the outside gap. And so the corner was blocked easily by, I mean, that would have been DJ Reed, right? He was blocked easily by the wide receiver. You'd like to see him maybe squeeze it a little bit better, but he has to stay on the very widest gap. You say, keep your outside shoulder free. So he wasn't going to be a big factor. It was the gap inside of the widest receiver that Wagner couldn't get to, and Diggs chose not to get to, and you open up those gaps. And Reed couldn't fall back into the play. Sometimes those guys do a 360 and fall back into play, the corners. Wagner couldn't fall into it, and it was just awful. So there's a safety for a reason. That's why they call him a safety. And for Quandre Diggs, he's looking and saying, a good safety play would have a mentality. Your biggest gain in the run game, no matter whether it's right up the middle or whether it's the sideline to sideline, you're not getting more than 9 yards on any run play for 60 minutes, because I'm going to come up and clean that up. I'm going to take a good angle. I'm going to tackle an open field. And you didn't get that.
I'm not going to pigeonhole you with this question. I'm going to leave it as open-ended as possible. Play calling. What did you think of the play calling by Schottenheimer today?
Well, I think that, first of all, I think that the rushing offense was spotty. You're playing with a 4-string right tackle. Let's not forget that. And so that impacted the game a lot. I think that what they should have done is have more catch and throws. If you watch the telecast the other day, and you're an NFL follower, they're making a big deal about how the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger has totally remade his game. He's gone from a guy that would hold the ball for an average, oftentimes 3.5 seconds, that he now has the fastest catch and release of any quarterback in the NFL. He's averaging like right at 2 seconds, maybe even under 2, or if it's over 2, it's like 2.1. But the point is you watch them, it's just catch from shotgun and get it out on the quick passes. And I think that there wasn't enough. Everybody has that in the game plan. It's just the Steelers are doing it really well. Mm-hmm. I think what Russell should have been doing more of is just catch and be content to take 4, 5, 6, 8-yard completions. Maybe you get a run after the catch. So I don't think that they worked the quick game out of shotgun enough. I don't think they got the ball to anybody really. Tyler Lockett, he has almost kind of disappeared as a really impactful receiver. So they're not getting to him. I think that Seattle is sub-average in their athleticism at tight end. I think that shows. And of course, Chris Carson had a ball bounce off his hand in the fourth quarter for an interception that led to the field goal. It was obviously very pivotal. So they didn't play their best game, but I think Russell right now, from time to time, he gets into this funk where you wonder what he's thinking. And I do think he's playing timid. I won't really give you a solid referendum on that until I hate to use the cliche, but the coach's tape will show you. The all 22 will show you that.
But what have you seen to this point before this game? Has he played?
There's times where you look and you say, when a quarterback's really playing with confidence and playing at a high level, you use your eyes to manipulate the defense, and then you throw with anticipation, and you see the movie before it happens. When quarterbacks are playing timid and they're kind of second guessing themselves, it's a paradox, guys, in the following regard. When you get apprehensive as a quarterback, and I'm not talking about, obviously I have some firsthand experience, but I'm talking about having played with 3 Hall of Famers, 3 additional Pro Bowlers, and then some other guys that were a good bit less than that. So even if you said negate my own experience, just from what I've observed, the way I think quarterbacks play the best is, again, you have to see the movie before it happens. There's a saying, if you see him open, if you see the receiver open, he's covered. Like, you can't wait to see it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to predict it. And particularly teams that are playing zone, as well as the Giants were playing today, where they did a really good job of handing off in zone. I mean, Dick, you coached high school basketball. You know when your zone defense is playing well, which is that you have to have a keen awareness, acute awareness of where your help is. And you move so far in your zone, and then you say, nope, that's far enough. I got to get back in this other way, otherwise I'm vulnerable. You have to let windows be open only for a brief period of time if you're playing great zone defense. And I think either the Giants were playing great zone defense today, or Russell Wilson was doing a poor job of anticipating windows, because he just was holding the ball for too long. I don't think his response to pressure was great. When he did have, he took 5 sacks, but he took 5 sacks for 47 yards. That's nearly 10 yards per sack, obviously. And if you look at the play sheet, every single sack that he took, the Seahawks lost the possession. They never gained a first down after a sack. So you had 12 possessions in the game, 5 sacks, and all 5 of those sacks were possession enders.
Wow.
So the combination of A, avoid the sack, B, if you're going to take a sack, take a minimal gain sack. And so it's just one of those type of days for Russell.
Right tackle, 4th string notwithstanding. I mean, I really felt like I didn't feel like Russell was under siege because of a lot of lack of protection. I almost felt like Russell either wasn't seeing open people or they weren't getting open. Is that what you saw too?
Well, again, it's tough, and we'll go back on the tape. But no, there was definitely times that guys were open. I mean, one of those sacks he had, Tyler Lockett was so open on a dig route that there was nobody within the screen. Yeah. So I think that I don't know. There's been times I've thought that he's almost been distracted, like something outside of his football life, because he's not playing with the focus that he normally does. And I know he was it seemed like he had a huge lead in the MVP after the first month of the season when he was the NFC Player of the Month. And it's that discussion nobody's making. No, that's not even in. It's over. That's not even. Yeah, it's over. So I feel like he's almost a distracted football player. He's not playing at the same confidence. I mean, that ball that should have been intercepted to Freddie Swain late in the game in the final drive.
Yeah, brutal.
That was early in the. I don't know if that was first down or second down. It wasn't. I think it was a first down, but no later than a second down, and it's like, whoa, that was 1st and 10 at the 46-yard line, and that should have been an interception.
Yeah,
and I'm like, what? That's not Russell Wilson, because it was an easy read. The safety's right there, and that ball should have been almost fair caught as an interception. What would we be talking now? We'd be saying, wait a minute. Russell was going to do his thing, but as you point out, the thing that ticks you off, and I thought the clock management, Pete Carroll not using the timeouts before, because Seattle didn't get the ball back until a minute and 48. Yeah, he held 2 timeouts, but you can control the clock more on offense. So I think that when the Giants had the ball, they should have been, before the 2-minute warning, they should have been calling timeouts there. So I think they screwed that up. You had the business of punting on the 37-yard line, the 4th and 1 decision, and they want to get cute rolling him to his left. That scheme was the first touchdown of the year to the Falcons, where they do the roll and they have the line going one way and they have Chris Carson going the other way. So you're trying to take advantage of linebackers who key the offensive line. And they got a touchdown, but that was a third down, or it might have been a second. Well, it doesn't matter. But the point, you had a right-handed quarterback going to his right. Here now, you try 4th and 1, and you just assume that you're going to throw it to Chris Carson in the flat and that they're not going to cover that. That's a big gamble. And with Russell going to his left, you cut in half at least his options. So that 4th and 1 was just, to me, it's like, oh my, like there must have been 25 plays on the sheet that would have been better than that.
Yeah.
So I just a lot of perplexing coaching decisions, a lot of perplexing play and indecision by the quarterback. And the defense, sure, absolutely played well enough to win, but you're still hanging there with that nearly 200 burger of rushing offense against you from a 4-17.
Hugh Millen joining us. We'll take a quick time out. We'll be back with Hugh and with Slick. We'll hear a little bit from Pete Carroll before we wrap things up in about 20 minutes, and then we've got Sunday Night Football for you right here. It's the 12-Man Postgame Show brought to you by Steel on 950 KJR. 6 with Slick here on the social media channels right now.
Tune in to Chuck and Buck every weekday morning for the 12th Man News at 7 with Tacoma News Tribune's Greg Bell on your...
That was abrupt. Okay, this is the part. I mean, look, we got about 20 minutes left in the show. I think it's a good opportunity to talk about what is next, what lies ahead here in the last quarter of the season for the Seahawks, because right now you're second place in the division because of the loss to the Rams. You do have a game upcoming against them. You're both 8-4. Everything's still out there for you to get the division if you beat the Rams. So but the cushion now is gone. And any thought you might have had of getting the 1 seed, which I thought wasn't going to happen anyway because you need the Saints to lose twice, that is now gone. Now you're focusing on, are we going to get the 2 or the 3 if we win the division? The division's still very gettable. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is Russell Wilson, the offense, they're not going to look every game like they look today. You still get to play the Jets next week. You still get to play against the Washington football team, and then you wrap up with the Rams, which is the biggest game of the year now, and the 49ers. So everything's still out there. You can still go 12-4. You can still be a 2 or 3 seed in this conference. So what's it going to take to get there? Something that you're going to need is health. And I think offensively, they're going to be healthy. Brandon Shell, I don't think it's a long-term injury. I don't think it's something that's going to keep him out in the long term. So you get your offensive line back. You've already got the running backs back. Wide receivers have been good. And you're going to add Josh Gordon in week 16. That's just another option, another weapon for Russell Wilson, a third receiver that he can use. We saw what he did last season. He was, it wasn't like he was as explosive as he used to be early on in his career, but you know what? He made some crucial catches on 3rd down, especially. He was a big reason why the Seahawks were able to beat the 49ers down in Santa Clara, were some of those chain moving catches that he had. And he brings a veteran presence and a veteran savvy. And by the way, you look at DK Metcalf and his size and his speed and everything, and there's always room for improvement. And Josh Gordon is somebody who has size and he's had that speed, and he can work with DK Metcalf on becoming an even better receiver. So those are all reasons why you should be excited about Josh Gordon. Defensively, this team has looked better, and that's the biggest takeaway out of anything as you're going into the last quarter of the season. The defense has looked better. I know Carlos Dunlap didn't show up big today. He didn't play as many snaps as he normally would because he's recovering with his sprained foot situation. But his impact, Jamal Adams' impact, the 7.5 sacks that we're getting from him, I think that defensively what you're seeing from this team, I'm not going to say like everything's cured, but they're playing good enough. And just like today, they played certainly good enough to win, didn't get the help from the offense. But that's all look, this is crunch time now. It's December. These are the crucial games upcoming as we're going into the playoffs. So everything's still out there for this team. And while today was frustrating, embarrassing, yes, it is 1 loss out of a schedule of 16, and it's something that they can bounce back and still achieve everything that they want to achieve in terms of winning the division, hosting a playoff game. If they get the 2 seed, really hosting 2 playoff games, by the way, because they would host the 7 seed, and then they would host again. So probably the 3 or the 4 seed in the second round, the divisional round of the playoffs. So a lot out there, a lot still out there, a lot positive left down the road. I know today was a kick in the gut, and I felt it too. And I'm still pissed. And I've been, even though, like I said right at the top, it was my plan to not have emotions today. That was when I was planning on this team, winning the football game, which I thought was something they'd be able to do. Didn't go that way. But Jets, football team, Rams, that's the biggie, and 49ers. That's still 3 of 4 opponents you should absolutely beat. I know today was one, obviously, and it didn't go that way. But those are 3 out of the 4 you should absolutely beat. And then if you really are a division champion, in 3 weeks, figure out a way to go and beat the Los Angeles Rams. And if you do that, you can be division champion. So you just got to we talk about focus of the quarterback, Russell Wilson, and everything. I don't know. I don't know if there's something off the field that's distractive. I tend to think that, I don't know, he knows how to be a professional quarterback at this stage. I mean, in his life, and he's got kids and everything. And I think he knows how to balance that stuff. Is something going on in his life? I don't know. All I know is what I see on Sunday. What I see right now is what I saw today was a quarterback that wasn't getting the job done. We know that most of the time that's not going to be the case. So especially with these weapons that he has, and the weapons on the outside just weren't getting it done today. They weren't on the same page, whatever it was. Again, we'll watch, we'll see, we'll talk about it all week long. David, DK is great, glad to have him, but he doesn't have the greatest hands. You know what? We're just, I think, going to have to deal with that for a while with DK. It's just going to be something that we deal with. Great receiver, all pro, wonderful stats. Not the greatest hands. We're going to have to deal with drops. All right, back to Dick Fain, Hugh Millen on the 12-Man Postgame Show presented by Steel.
Now back to the 12th Man Postgame Show, powered by Real Steel. Find yours. Visit your local Steel dealer today on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950, KJR.
Dick Fain, Slickhawk, Hugh Breedlove, Millen. Final few seconds with Hugh, and then Slick and I will wrap things up and throw it to Sunday Night Football tonight. Hugh, you mentioned a distracted, out of sorts, out of rhythm Russell Wilson, and I'm wondering if a more stable running game could have helped that, more of a devotion to the run in the early going. I mean, I kept writing down in my notes as the game went on. Here I have 24 pass plays, 9 runs. 3 points. I have 32 pass plays at this point, 12 runs. I mean, it was like 3-1 pass plays to run calls in the first 3 quarters. And then obviously you're frantic in the fourth, and it gets even worse than that. The balance there, the Pete Carroll and Brian Schottenheimer have told us the last week, all we heard was we're going to get balance. And there was absolutely none of it. Could that have settled Russ down a little bit?
Yeah, in theory, it could have. I felt like the running game was spotty. I think the numbers, as I looked at them, looked better than I felt like through the course of the game. So I would agree with you. I think some of the time, last week I thought they got a little too cute. They tried to go outside too much. And I thought that they should have gone inside. Today, they had some trouble going inside on just their basic inside runs. And, credit the Giants that they were getting off blocks and getting the plays, but this is a couple games in a row now where I feel like Seattle, they're not where they want to be, and they don't want to play with a fullback. Most of their runs now are in shotgun, and just to answer your question, I think that it could have helped.
On that fourth, on that 4th and 1, would you have preferred to see some sort of inside run, or would you prefer to see a quick pass from in the pocket? What did you want to see there on 4th?
I think if you're inside, see 4th and 1, the way I look at it, it's interesting. If you read how the statisticians record a game, 4th and 1 can be 4th and a millimeter, or it can be 5 feet, because as soon as the ball travels beyond a hash, it becomes the next hash, even though it may be 2 feet short. And the football is 11 inches long, so it's really, it's 5 feet and an inch. Right. So when you say 4th and 1, it can mean a lot, depending on where the ball spotted. But that was inside of 3 feet, and I just think that you should be under center all the time. If you're under 3 feet, you should be under center, because the defense has to squeeze to
prevent
the quarterback sneak, right? Yeah. You've got to have at least 2 guys. You got to have those A gaps manned, and then that can help you. And then, of course, now the running back can nudge up closer, and he can come downhill faster. I thought Mike Holmgren had a great plan in 4th and 1. Of course, they were more often in under center, but they had little jab counters where Sean Alexander would be aligned 4.5 yards from the ball, and he could line right up behind Matt Hasselbeck, and he could either do a plunge or he could do a short little jab counter and create just a little bit of movement in the opposite direction. And yet, because he was so close to Hasselbeck, the ball got there quick. And I thought that was a more effective plan than what we see just to line up in shotgun, where you don't have the threat of the quarterback sneak. You're going to have longer development plays. You have the choice. Does the running back align to the left or to the right? Well, or it could be pistol. And I'm sure my man Slickhawk could make a comment about his thoughts about pistol and 4th and 1. But that's a little bit of an inside joke. But if you put
Duckman,
if you put him in the pistol, then now you're 8 yards from the line of scrimmage. That's not to me is your best option in 4th and 1. So now if you offset him from shotgun, let's say that Russell Wilson stand there, he's got Chris Carson to his left. Well, that's probably going to be an inside zone to the right. Because if you run inside zone to the left, which you can do, you're still now Carson's got to come to the ball, and then he's got to break his momentum, and then he's got to go back out left. So there's a strong inclination to the side opposite of the alignment of the back. Well, you solve all that stuff by just getting under center and having the back in a neutral position, and maybe even having a fullback. I mean, you could have Chris Carson as the tailback, and you could have Carlos Hyde, and you could just give the ball to Hyde on a dive.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And you say, wait a minute, you got Nick Ballure, but I'm just saying you got a runner you can put at fullback. Teams have done that through the years. So I didn't like the misdirection. I just felt like, and it's not Sunday night guessing on that 4th and 1. As soon as the play was developing, like, oh boy, it's going to be the naked to the left. I just thought it was a low percentage play.
What'd you think on 4th and 6 at the 37? What did you want to see there instead of the delay of purposeful delay of game and the punt?
I think I think it's pro football, and I think time and again, this is an observation I made. Look, I am the most stereotype, or not. I do not have superstitious. Sorry, that was the word. Okay. I am the least superstitious guy. I don't fall. I tell all of my wife and her friends that the idea of your horoscope is a bunch of nonsense. Okay, like I could go through a lot of areas where I say, that's just garbage. But I think the football gods get pissed off when you play scared, and you've got a $100 million quarterback, and you're on the 37, and you're going against Colt McCoy. Like, you should have the mindset, look, of course we're going for it on 4th and 6 on their 37. So you're going to take a delay a game and then punt? No. I mean, that's no. I didn't like that. Come on.
Knock on wood next time you talk about the football gods, Hugh, would you?
Right? Yeah. On that note, Hugh, great stuff. You have a lot to break down. I know it's more fun for you to break it down when it's when the end is going to be a good one. This one's not such a good one, but we'll talk to you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. on the Monday Morning Quarterback.
All right, guys.
All right, sounds good. That's Hugh Breedlove, Millen, Slick, and I will be back to wrap things up. We'll take a quick look at the standings as well and find out what this loss did for the Seahawks and, what kind of burden did they put on their shoulders by losing this one. And then we'll throw it to Sunday Night Football next on 950 KJR. But the final 6 with Slick is coming up right now on social media.
Tune in to Chuck and Buck every weekday morning for the 12th Man News at 7 with Tacoma News Tribune's Greg Bell on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle's Sports Radio 950, KJR.
All right, the last of 6 with me and with you, and this is the last one, which means I want to hear from you. I want as many comments as possible. We're going to start with Duncan, who says, sometimes he thinks Russ gets too full of himself and thinks it's going to be easy. Okay, that is an opinion, and I appreciate you sending that in. I don't know if he gets too full of himself. I think a quarterback needs to have confidence, and maybe sometimes he has too much in his the confidence in his running ability and thinks he can extend plays when the defense isn't giving him that. Mike, one game at a time. They're not good enough right now to beat the Rams or the 49ers. I can't say I agree with that. They had a bad game. That doesn't mean that they're a bad team. David, they just need to be worried about beating the Jets. Well, I mean, the Jets beat themselves today, it looked like, against the Raiders. They should have had their first win, and they couldn't even pull that off. And if you saw the way that went game down, I'm not worried about the Jets. If this team loses to the Jets, I'd turn in my 12 jersey right now. Jordan, anyone to expect this team to go any deeper than the divisional round? Well, they haven't since 2014? Maybe 2015, but I think 2014. So it just depends. Depends on who, I mean, if they win these next 4, get the 2 seed, then you end up hosting Green Bay probably in the divisional round. I think that's a lot better, obviously, than going to Lambeau or something like that. So I think that there's a chance. I think there's a good chance even. But, I mean, Russell Wilson has to start playing like Russell Wilson. I mean, it's not a secret that everything, falls on his shoulders. This team will only go as far as Russell Wilson takes them. But Russell Wilson has to be playing at that top level for that to happen. Otherwise, it all falls apart. It's interesting you say they need to run more up-tempo this week. Brian Schottenheimer said they're going to run more up-tempo. I was looking for the up-tempo. The up-tempo never came, really. They didn't have any tempo this game. Jay wondering why he's dropping back, waiting, can't find anybody, and ducks his head and gets sacked. Look, and this is why I said I'm anxious to see the coach's film copy, because I just can't believe that all those receivers were covered up and they weren't able to get open. I'm sure that there were opportunities. I don't know what he was looking for that he was missing, but he was making bad decisions today and not taking what the defense gave him. He was looking for something bigger, and it just never came. Billy, you have to pass when he keeps getting sacked. He held on to the ball too long. That's what we're talking about. I mean, the offensive line, I thought, gave him time a lot of the time today. There were a couple times where, they could have done a better job. But, he certainly had opportunities today. Xavier, the Cardinals exposed the offense. I don't know about that. I mean, I think the Giants are a pretty good defensive team. And they played a lot of zone, and they played it well, and Seattle wasn't able to do anything with it. A different Sean Alexander says the timeout Pete used to ice the kicker. I don't think that's the reason he did it. The only thing I can think of why I would call a timeout there, because you're not icing a kicker in the middle of the third quarter. It's not a pressure kick. The only thing I can think of is that they had 12 men. And so you have to call a timeout so they don't throw the flag and give the first down. That's the only reason you would call a timeout there. And I'm sure that's what it is, but I'm not in Pete Carroll's head. I can't speak, but that's the only thing that makes sense. That's the only reason why you would call a timeout there. All right, we had success early on the opening drive running Carson. No idea why you abandoned that. Yeah, we talked about it a couple times tonight. The second half, the running game was more of an afterthought. And I don't know. He definitely could have used some more of that kind of as the thing went. Stop taking out the slants and screenplays. So little movement to get Russell out of the pocket to see more things happen. I just thought that they could have used the intermediate passing game, middle of the field, more tight ends, more of those slants or skinny posts toward the middle of the field, that kind of 10 to 15 yard range to move the chains and keep the ball, keep positive. So they didn't do a lot of that tonight, and they punted a lot, and that's kind of the result. They weren't able to keep the chains moving. There were bad penalties at bad times. There were bad sacks at bad times, and they just stayed behind the sticks. DK is great, doesn't have the greatest hands. It's just, it's a frustration that we have now, and we may always have with DK. He's going to have a drop here and there. It just is what it is. There's a lot that he gives you, but there's a lot that ends up hitting the ground as well. Jamie, only balls thrown over 30 yards with the last pass play. The one that one I'm thinking of was the one that should have been picked on the sideline, but it didn't. It wasn't. It's a game they should have won, and they didn't. All right, a little bit of the standings update with Dick Fain, maybe some from Pete Carroll as well, here as we get back to the 12-man post-game show presented by Steel.
Now back to the 12th Man Postgame Show, powered by Real Steel. Find yours. Visit your local steel dealer today on your home for the 12th Man and the NFL. Seattle Sports Radio 950, KJR.
Yeah. I got to give a shout out. I got to give a shout out to my friend Slickhawk because he handles those texts with such great poise, such great aplomb. When I hear texts like, the Seahawks were exposed, there's no way they can possibly beat anybody if they don't beat the Giants. Like things like that. I mean, yeah. I want to throw my headsets against the wall because we all know, I understand they're texts out of frustration, but we also understand there is no truth in any of them either. There is just these are 16 individual battles that you get into, and many of them go your way, and a few of them don't go yours. And the immediate reaction of, well, we didn't win this one, so therefore we can't win any other one. Other ones are just blatantly untrue. It's like you've never seen a Seahawk game before in the last 10 years. But so I appreciate that, Slickhawk. But having said that, they did dig themselves a deep hole today. One, the number 1 seed is almost all but gone now. And number 2, you put yourself in a position where you have to beat the Rams now, where you didn't. Had you won this game, go take care of the Jets next week. You didn't have to beat the Rams necessarily to win the division. I think now you probably do.
You probably do. But you know what? If you're a playoff team, then that's a team you should beat anyway. So when they get to that point, then I'll that's 3 weeks away from now. But at that point, you're looking at, okay, we're a playoff team. So we should be able to beat another pretty good team that maybe we've had struggles with in the past. So that part of it, look, the number 1 seed I thought was the longest of long shots anyway. You needed the Saints to lose 2 essentially.
Yeah.
And that just wasn't going to happen. So, I mean, I put out percentages. This isn't based on math. It was just based on my own personal feeling. The most overwhelming possibility, now that was with winning this game, was the Seahawks getting the 2 seed. It'll probably end up, it's more likely maybe right now that they get the 3 seed, but the path to the 2 seed is still there, and they can definitely do it.
And there's no difference between a 2 and a 3 anyway, really. When you think about it, you don't have any fans at your games anyway.
Well, no, the difference is hosting the divisional game it's the difference between going to Lambeau and the Packers coming here.
True, but you're still having no fans. So, going to Lambeau again with no fans. Yes, weather, travel, got it. Understood. All right.
Big deal.
Let's go to the Chiefs, who I think are the 1 seed in the AFC, despite what people think about the Steelers. I think the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC, and they're taking on the Broncos right now. Thanks to Slick. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning. All right, man, with Chuck and Buck.
Sounds good.
That's Slick. For Hugh, Dick Fain saying so long. Kickoff right now. It's Harrison Butker to tee it up from KC.